Hey, it's Lou, and some wild shit is going down in Haiti, where long-simmering anti-government sentiment has erupted into street protests. Demonstrators have erected roadblocks and barricades, crippling business as usual as police and malcontent citizens turn violent. Seizing on the chaos, 78 inmates escaped from prison. This recent unrest crescendoed in February, but a cycle of protests followed by violent reprisals has churned for the better part of a year. In July 2018, the Prime Minister resigned after deadly protests. In November, at least 71 Haitians were massacred in what is suspected to be a brutal act of government intimidation, but the movement was not intimidated. Haitians are fed up with corrupt politicians and self-dealing business elites who have mismanaged the economy and plundered government coffers. Meanwhile, the U.S. and the rest of the international community, which has a huge presence in the country in the form of aid workers, has consistently supported a status quo that is not working for average people, and a history of meddling and interventions has eroded democratic institutions. So, can ordinary Haitians finally gain the good governance they deserve and blaze their own path forward? It's been a tough decade in Haiti. In 2010, at least 220,000 people were killed and another 1.5 million displaced in a historic earthquake that created an estimated $7.8 billion in damages. Then, in 2016, Hurricane Matthew dealt another huge blow, this time to the tune of an estimated $1.9 billion in damages. In one coastal city, approximately 90% of buildings were destroyed or damaged. Meanwhile, drought between 2015 and 2017 led to crop losses of up to 70%, and somehow, UN peacekeepers accidentally caused a cholera outbreak that killed 10,000 people and infected nearly 1 million more. Deforestation, lack of infrastructure, poor city planning, and inadequate healthcare have exacerbated all these issues and have contributed to widespread poverty. Cécile Auxillier, director of the Institute of Haitian Studies at the University of Kansas, told me the phrase "poorest country in the Western Hemisphere" is practically used as Haiti's last name, an allusion to a famous poem. But Auxillier also explained that Haiti isn't a hopeless charity case plagued by bad luck, bad geography, and self-inflicted wounds. Nor is the country suffering because it swore a pact with the devil to gain independence from the French in the 19th century, as the improbably influential American preacher Pat Robertson opined after that 2010 earthquake.
They got together and swore a pact to the devil. They said, "We will serve you if you'll get us free from the French."
No. Understanding Haiti's long journey from the richest colony in the Americas to modern destitution requires an understanding of the various instances of foreign intervention in the country. And actually, let's start where Pat Robertson did, with the French in the early 1800s. Napoleon was so desperate to hold on to sugar-rich Saint-Domingue, that was Haiti's name when it was a French colony, that he sold the United States roughly 827,000 square miles in what became known as the Louisiana Purchase, and used the cash to fight against a Saint-Domingue slave revolt. However, Napoleon lost, and Haiti became an independent state in 1804. A bitter France demanded the modern equivalent of $21 billion in reparations. Meanwhile, the U.S. was reluctant to trade with Haiti on fair terms because they didn't want to legitimize a country led by former slaves. If they did, that might inspire a slave rebellion in America. So you have this young country that ought to be prioritizing development, but instead is stuck with this debt and this not-so-friendly neighbor. That has reverberated throughout history. As much as 80% of Haiti's revenues over the course of its first 120 years went to paying off the French. But foreign intervention isn't limited to the 19th century. In 1915, President Woodrow Wilson sent Marines into Haiti to occupy the country. He was apparently concerned about foreign powers gaining a foothold there as World War I raged. The Americans stayed for nearly 2 decades. They controlled Haiti's finances and security. They rewrote the Constitution, curbed the free press, and deposed local lawmakers that objected to their presence. In other words, they prioritized U.S. goals over what was good for Haiti and stifle the country's ability to create strong democratic institutions. When the U.S. pulled out under FDR, a power vacuum led to political instability. Eventually, in 1957, a dictator filled it. That's Francois Duvalier, nicknamed Papa Doc. The Duvalier regime would last for 29 years. An estimated 30,000 people were killed. Secret police dubbed Tontons Mokutes after a folk boogeyman who devours mischievous children terrorized the population. When Papa Doc eventually died, his 19-year-old son, dubbed Baby Doc, took over. The repression continued, but Baby Doc made some concessions. He loosened restrictions on the free press and released some political prisoners. And most importantly to the U.S. that was actively participating in a Cold War at the time, Baby Doc was staunchly anti-communist, so the Reagan administration supported him. Eventually, Baby Doc was pushed out of office in 1986 following mass protests. Since then, there continued to be a head-spinning amount of U.S. interference. Under George H.W. Bush, Haitian criminals reportedly on the CIA payroll pushed out a Haitian president in a coup, that Jean-Bertrand Aristide. He was left-leaning. U.S. foreign policy at the time generally favored right-wingers in office. But 3 years later, Bill Clinton sent in U.S. troops to restore Aristide as head of state, although he was pushed out again in 2004. He blamed George W. Bush for that coup, although that administration denied it. Then, in 2011, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, Michel Martelly, a former singer with no political experience, became Haiti's president. Election fraud was glaringly obvious to many observers. I mean, one of Haiti's two major political parties was not allowed to run a candidate. Democrats in the U.S. Congress urged Hillary Clinton not to validate the election, but she ignored them. The U.S. accepted the results, and Martelly became head of state. His first prime minister was Bill Clinton's former chief of staff at the UN Special Envoy Office. It's all a little complicated, I know, but the point is, the U.S. has a long track record of interfering in Haiti for its own ends, and in the process, the U.S. has made it nearly impossible for the Haitian electorate to trust their government. Nicole Phillips, a human rights attorney for the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti, told me there's a Haitian word, complot, that they use to describe elections. That's Haitian Creole for conspiracy. Auxilier added there's a perception that voters don't matter. What matters is what the U.S. wants. Then there's the non-government organization community. In 2010, data revealed that more NGOs exist per capita in Haiti than any other country, earning it the nickname the Republic of NGOs. Scott Freeman, an environmental anthropologist and co-editor of Who Owns Haiti, told me that the size of Haiti's government slimmed down in the 1980s, and therefore it was unable to provide basic services. So NGOs try to come in and fill the gaps. But this patchwork system has not been effective. Plus, a lot of foreign aid money is routed through U.S. contractors with high overhead costs. Consider, Jake Johnston, a research associate at the Center for Economic and Policy Research, found that building a house costs $8,000 if locals are doing the work. But that balloons to $33,000 when foreigners are doing the building, because baked into that price is hotel, airfare, food, and something called danger pay. All in all, foreign donors pledged more than $10 billion to Haiti following the earthquake, but less than 1% of it went directly to Haitians in the first few years. Eventually, the donors stopped tracking the money. Freeman told me that foreign countries use the discourse of helping and developing, but they're after their own agenda, whether that's political or economic. For example, when he was president, Bill Clinton got Haiti to lower the import fee on food. An American company then started selling rice to Haiti. That company was based in Arkansas, Clinton's home state. He later apologized for how things played out.
We were helping Haiti when we restored President Aristide, made a commitment to help rebuild the infrastructure through the Army Corps of Engineers there and do a lot of other things. And we made this devil's bargain on rice, and it wasn't the right thing to do.
Look, I know I've been painting the U.S. as the bad guy here, but there's plenty of blame to go around. Haiti's elites have created a rigged system where the broken status quo works for them at the expense of everyone else. No surprise then that the country ranks 4th in income inequality out of 157 countries. Johnson told me the economy is controlled by a few actors who have virtual monopolies on certain markets. Phillips added that the elite have effectively corrupted the police, prosecutors, and the judiciary so that they avoid accountability for their often blatant corruption. She added that the entrenched government powers are more interested in enriching themselves and their cronies than, actually governing. I mean, this is a country with acute problems. 59% of the population lives below the poverty line. Approximately 100,000 children under 5 are malnourished. Only 50% of children attend school. The water supply is frequently contaminated with diseases. In other words, there is plenty of work to be done. It's glaringly obvious, but instead, the powers that be prioritize their own selfish interest. This is underscored by the PetroCaribe scandal. PetroCaribe is a program through which Venezuela sold oil to a number of neighbors and allowed them to defer parts of the payment. Essentially, Venezuela was providing low-interest loans, and the money was supposed to be used towards social and development programs, including sanitation, health, and agriculture. However, a 2017 report by the Haitian Senate found that $2 billion of this money was embezzled by government officials and heads of powerful firms. Phillips told me this was an unprecedented document. It named names, including 2 former prime ministers and a company associated with the current president, Jovenel Moïse. Several government advisors implicated were dismissed as a result of the report, although Auxilier told me no one returned the stolen money, so it wasn't that much of a victory. This has been a huge point of contention in Haiti. In August 2018, a Haitian filmmaker posted a photo on social media launching what became the PetroCaribe Challenge. It went viral, sparking an online and IRL movement which demanded to know where the hell the money went. And by the way, this is on the heels of a July 2018 announcement that the price of fuel would increase by about 40%, which prompted a strike and large protest. Eventually, the prime minister resigned and the fuel hike was eliminated, but the unrest continued into the fall. In November, armed thugs, many wearing police uniforms, rolled into a neighborhood associated with Haiti's opposition movement and massacred at least 71 people. Now, there's some debate about whether this was gang violence, but the experts I spoke to said the lines between gangs and police are often very blurry, and many Haitians suspected that the murders were designed to quiet protesters. If that was the aim, it did not work. On February 7, 2019, a massive series of street protests swept across the country, shutting down commerce and public transportation. The demonstrators demanded accountability, good governance, and an end to a system that favored the wealthy and well-connected and ignored the poor. Unfortunately, these protests, which lasted for days, were marked by violence. At least 9 people were killed, and there was extensive property damage. Auxilier told me it's hard to figure out who is responsible for the destruction because different groups are known to hire breakers to sow chaos and undermine the credibility of the real demonstrators. Haiti's president, Jovenel Moïse, was silent during much of this upheaval, which added fuel to the fire. Eventually, Moïse said he wouldn't resign to armed gangs and drug traffickers. The U.S. issued a statement supporting him, but noted the need for action to be taken on the missing funds. Meanwhile, 4 U.S. military veterans were arrested in Haiti during the height of the February unrest. They were driving in cars without license plates and had an arsenal of weapons and tactical gear. Look, taking a step back for a second, it's important to note that protests aren't all that uncommon in Haiti. Freeman told me that traditional avenues that allow citizens to impact their government, like democratic institutions, have been closed off to the majority of the population. So the best way, perhaps the only way, to hold the powers that be accountable is through demonstration. But Johnson told me this time is different. The breadth of frustration is immense, and a broader cross-section of society is participating. Johnson added, for most of its history, the U.S. wanted to keep a lid on Haiti. They prized stability over everything else. But now, that lid seems ready to blow off. And time will tell if popular tumult can coalesce into coherent governance. Everyday Haitians, long deprived of true self-determination, ought to be given the time and space to figure out what they want.